We're at the 2016 Ripcord Association reunion in Springfield, Missouri. Talking today with Steve Gunn of Emmaus, Pennsylvania, and the interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Okay, Steve, start us off with some background on yourself. To begin with, where and when were you born?
I was born in Austin, Texas, 1946.
Okay, and then did you grow up in Texas or did you move around?
I spent some time in Texas. My dad was getting his degree at the University of Texas in Austin, and we moved to El Paso. But my memories are mostly in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
My dad went to teach in Clinton, Mississippi at Mississippi College, and I was there second grade through freshman year in college. That's where I grew up.
Okay, and when did you finish high school?
1964.
Okay, and then did you go straight to college then from high school?
I did. I went to Mississippi College for a year, and then Houston Baptist College in Texas, and then graduated from Baylor.
Okay, and what year did you finish college?
68.
So you did go through in 4 years, just in different places?
Correct.
Okay. And so you had a draft deferment during that time?
I guess, to my recollection.
Yeah.
After that, after I graduated from undergrad, I went to University of Chicago to get a master's degree in social work.
Okay. Now, at that time, did you have any kind of deferment, or were you kind of on your own in the draft?
Yeah, I guess I suppose I had a deferment, but when I was in the middle of my first year in grad school at University of Chicago, the draft board contacted me and said my number was up,
Mm-hmm.
and I needed to come, and I said, well, could I finish this year of school? And they said, okay. And so then to my recollection, I entered the service in Chicago in August of 69.
Okay.
68. I don't know, it gets fuzzy.
Well, I think it's 69. I think
69, I had to be
69,
69
yeah.
since I graduated from.
So from the sound of it, then you lost your deferment after the 4 years, which is normal. But then Uncle Sam takes X amount of time to catch up with you, and then you're on a delay. They gave you a short deferment or a delayed entry.
Right.
Yeah. So the 4 years is the standard for being in college full time, and after that you're on your own. Okay. So now that you've been drafted, where do they send you for basic training?
Well, one more thing.
Okay.
I thought the war was wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and I did not want to contribute. I wanted to minimize the amount that I contributed to the killing, so I applied for conscientious objector status.
Mm-hmm.
And I counseled with the anti-war, anti-draft people at Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and we went through my options, which were go to Canada, apply for, there's one AO and there's one O, I forget which one is which, but one is you don't serve in the military, you serve in alternate service,
Mm-hmm.
and the other is you go into the military as a non-combatant.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose to apply for the non-combatant in the military
Mm-hmm.
option because I felt like I had more ground to stand on. I don't think I could have gotten the other.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Because at that point, the military still gets to use you for something, which is
Right.
better than having to go to Canada. All right. Now, on a practical level, what kinds of military specializations could you go into if you have that status? What counts as non-combatant?
Well, I tried to convince them that I should be able to work in social work in the military. However, the only option that I was given was to serve as a medic.
Mm-hmm. All right. So where do they send you then for training?
Fort Sam Houston's where they all send all of the conscientious objectors for basic, and then advanced individual training also at Fort Sam Houston.
Okay. Now, what was, was your basic training platoon or whatever, was that all conscientious objectors put together?
Yes.
Okay. And so what kind of reception do you get when you arrive there and you have that label? How do they treat you?
Fine. It was a matter of fact. We were not harassed or treated negatively in any way, other than what they're supposed to do is, what the drill sergeant's supposed to do. But we didn't. We were treated with respect, as far as I can tell.
Okay. So what did the basic training then include?
Physical fitness, and I think they taught us how to use a compass and a map, rudimentary. The rest of it, I have no clear recollection.
Well, you'd have just the marching drill and
Oh
discipline
yeah,
stuff
we got
and
to
the
do
keeping
that.
clean.
We got to drill, marching and formation and all that. Who to salute to,
Right.
and who to say sir to, and all that good stuff.
But no weapons training, no hand-to-hand combat?
No,
Okay. All right, and how long did that training go on?
I don't know, maybe 8 weeks.
Yeah. 8 weeks was a standard for most things for basic, so okay. And then you stay on for AIT at Sam Houston.
Right.
All right, so what did your medic training consist of?
It consisted of a wide range of things, from how to be an orderly in a hospital and how to treat sucking chest wounds in the field, and basic first aid and that kind of stuff.
So you were preparing both to be a medic in the field or work in a hospital or a ward of some kind?
Right, it was a broad spectrum training, yeah.
All right. Now, at any point in that training, were you being taught by people who had spent time in Vietnam, or do you not know?
I do not remember anybody demonstrating knowledge of Vietnam.
Okay. All right. And how long did the IAT last?
I don't know, maybe 10 weeks.
Okay.
Something like
So
that.
it seemed a little bit longer than the basic training part? Or
I have no recollection.
okay. Yeah. But still only a couple of months, not some
No, right.
extended period. Okay. Now,
So it was August, so 8 weeks for basic, August, September, October, November, probably 2 months, because then I had a little bit of a break, and then I entered, got on the plane for Vietnam in probably January.
okay. So you get
Christmas
leave.
off.
Yeah. Well, you get a leave home before you go overseas. Is normal pretty much at that point. But you weren't sent to a hospital or any place else in the States before going off. So it's off to Vietnam. At what point did you find out you were going to Vietnam?
And I seem to remember a list on the wall after AIT.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at the end of that, you go home and go to Vietnam. Okay. How did they get you to Vietnam?
We flew.
Yeah.
Where did we fly from? I do not remember.
In Oakland and Seattle are the normal places.
Yeah, maybe Oakland. I don't remember. I don't remember how I got there, but I got on the plane and we flew. I think we had a stop in Japan, and then we went on.
Okay. And was it a chartered civilian aircraft or a military one, or?
I think it was a chartered civilian.
That was the most common way of doing it. Okay. Do you remember where you landed in Vietnam?
Somewhere in the south.
So Saigon area or Cam Ranh Bay, or those are kind of the main.
Cam Ranh, probably. That sounds familiar.
Okay. And then, what's your first impression of Vietnam when you get there?
Just a military base, and I didn't have much of an impression of Cam Run.
Okay. Did you notice the heat when you got off the plane, or was it not bad?
It didn't seem oppressive. No, it was hot. We went in. We had to go through some processing, and they said, you probably want to get rid of your field jacket,
Mm-hmm.
which was a stupid thing to do because I was sent to I Corps.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they gave us jungle fatigues and boots, I believe. Yeah.
And did they do any kind of orientation at Cam Run, or did they just send you on to wherever you're going?
I believe they just sent us on. I've been told that we had some form of training when we got to Camp Evans,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't remember it.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Yeah.
it.
Well, there was a standard sort of Screaming Eagles replacement training thing, CERTS is what they called it, that most of the newly arrived people got for the 101st. And that was Camp Eagle is usually where they did that. So, but it was just a few days worth of stuff. Now, I guess to back up a little bit, as you are training as the non-combatant medic, I mean, are there rules for what you're supposed to do or not do, or are you just being told, here's how you treat people, and then they just send you off?
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay. And did you at any point get any kind of basic weapons training in case you needed them to protect your patients or anything like that? No. Okay. Did anyone offer you a weapon?
No.
All right. So you arrive at Cam Run. Now, at the time you got to Cam Run Bay, did you know where you were going to go, or do you get your assignment?
I believe I got it there.
Yeah. Okay. That would be common too, because you go where you're needed essentially. Okay, so you go up there, you go up north, because 101st Airborne is up the northern end of South Vietnam. And once you get up there, what unit are you assigned to?
I was assigned to Headquarters Company, the 2nd of the 506th.
Okay, so it's an infantry battalion. And as a medic, you're assigned to the headquarters and then sent out to the different line units.
Right.
Okay, all right. And where was the battalion headquarters located?
At Camp Evans outside of Phu Bai.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and at the time you got there, was the battalion out in the field, or were they at Camp Evans?
They were out in the field, as far as I know. The thing I remember is being, I guess, helicoptered out to the company,
Mm-hmm.
and they were in the flatlands,
Okay.
operating around, I guess there are some fire bases
Yeah.
in that area.
Okay, and what kind of reception do you get when you join the company? Or the battalion, rather, I guess.
I don't have much of a recollection of that. It wasn't unpleasant or problematic. I don't remember being told much or shown much.
Yeah. Did you start out at the battalion aid station, or did they just assign you to a line company?
I didn't do anything. The first thing I did was go to the field with Delta Company
Okay, and that company will be the one that you serve with and consistently?
for 6 months or so.
Yeah. Okay.
7 months.
Because I guess with medics, I guess they rotate them between field duty and kind of base duty.
Well, I guess my understanding of the rules were that you serve in the field for 6 months and then you go to some kind of non-field duty.
Right. Okay. All right. So now, once you're out there, you join the company. What do you find yourself doing in those first weeks?
It's all relatively hazy and fragmented. We just walked around in the flatlands and lived out there in the field and slept on the ground and ate sea rations, and I gave out malaria pills, and so we didn't have, there was no action other than we did have an injury. That there was a group of us we found this big open pit, and we wanted to make sure there was no enemy down there, so we threw gasoline down the pit, and then when it was set on fire, somebody was singed pretty bad. But aside from that, we just humped around the flats, and
Okay. Did anybody notice or make any comment on the fact that you were not carrying a weapon or anything like that?
I don't have nobody. I don't run it. I don't remember one word of one negative word,
Okay. Well, it doesn't even have to be negative necessarily. Just to,
or
talk
or
to-
even I don't remember any comments, but I don't remember a hell of a lot. So
All right. Okay, so you're out there, so you're in the flatlands for a while, and then I guess starting about March, the battalion kind of moves into the Ripcord area, goes up into the hills, and will be there for the next several months. Now, what do you remember about just going into the jungle?
well, you get on a helicopter with probably six guys. I don't know. I think there's probably about 6 guys, and you sit in an open window of a Huey, and your feet are hanging out, and you fly to the landing zone. Or I guess you could sit on the floor of the Huey, and I think we landed in. I remember and we would land at whatever LZ there was, and we would hop out, and I think there was one time when there may have been a shot or two fired when we came in, and we had the staff sergeant that was with us, was directing us to where to move and stay down and all this kind of stuff, but. To my recollection, I don't remember any casualties or wounded that happened during those. We would just get off and move to wherever they told us to go.
Okay. And when you were out patrolling or marching through the jungle or whatever, where were you supposed to be, or who were you supposed to be with? Or would you just go where you wanted to?
I have this. I think I probably spent much of my time in Vietnam trying to not be there.
Okay.
So my memories are thin, but I believe that, to my understanding, I was assigned to a platoon, and I stayed with the platoon. I may have had some functions when we camped in communication with the command center, but I stayed with my platoon, walked with my platoon, and my recollections is that we moved in company-sized movements. Whether that's accurate or not, I don't know, but I stayed.
Well, eventually at Ripcord it certainly was. I mean, earlier on there may have been more platoon movement, but as the companies got smaller and they got to be more and more enemy out there, certainly in the later stages of Ripcord, it was consistently the company being together.
Yeah, Oh, back in the flats, just a,
Mhm.
I did go out on an ambush one night. I only remember going on one ambush.
And how large were you with a squad, or was it a
It
whole
was a
platoon?
small squad, I don't know, maybe five or six guys,
Okay.
maybe.
It would
And-
seem a little odd to send a medic out with them, but
It would. I think it was considered a very low risk
Mhm.
situation because there wasn't much activity in the flats as far as I know. We had a Chuhoy scout with us, a Kit Carson scout, who I believe was interested in not having any action. So at dusk he lit his C4 and it spewed up about 6 feet high because he was like cooking his rice.
Mhm.
So if anybody was looking, they knew exactly where we were, so they could avoid us. Of course, I guess they could have hit us too.
Yeah, if they were looking to do that, but if at this point they weren't trying to make contact, then
It sounds like it.
yeah.
So at any rate, that was pretty much the only thing with that, with the squad.
Mhm.
And then up in the mountains, we walk in single line and spaced out pretty well, and just follow the person ahead of us. And
Do you recall if you normally use trails or try to stay off of them, or?
we did use trails, and then also we just would go wherever we were supposed to go, and whether there were trails or not.
Okay. So was the kind of
There's a lot of trails up there, if I remember correctly.
but the undergrowth wasn't so thick that you couldn't kind of cut through it fairly
It
easily?
wasn't any of those cutting through underbrush kind of
Mhm.
situations, because it was more like the mountains. The mountains was more like the mountains in Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
Not that they're more like hills in Pennsylvania, but you know, it's deciduous, and I mean it was thick, but it didn't look jungly to me. It just looked like a regular old forest to me.
Mhm. All right. Well, you had canopy above you
It was-
someplace, but
Well, you know, I'm probably minimizing, but yeah, there was pretty high, and they talk about double and triple canopy because that was an issue with popping smokes and stuff because it'll diffuse the smoke. But anyway, to my recollection, you know, there were like these kind of palm-looking frondy things, and you know, pit viper. I saw a beautiful green pit viper hanging over as we walked by. But I'm sorry. At any rate, the general environment was a fair number of trails, but rocky, steep, forested areas.
okay. Do you have any impression of the people who were leading the unit, whether it's platoon leaders or company commanders, things like that? What can you recall about them?
Yeah. Well, the first platoon leader I had in the flats was an incompetent individual, as far as I could tell, who seemed most interested in whether he had a full bag of peanut butter and jelly. Collected peanut butter and jelly containers from the sea ration. Didn't know how to use a night vision scope. Let us set up poncho hooches, which was a security violation, and seemed like mostly consumed with his own crap as opposed to being concerned about us. So that was but when Captain Rollison took over the leadership of the company, he got rid of that guy, and I was assigned to a platoon with Jim McCall, Lieutenant McCall, who was my platoon leader.
Right.
And Rollison, I thought, was a pretty scary guy, and originally it was like I was a somewhat contemptuous young man, and I felt carrying a shotgun. He's like a southern redneck blankety blank, you know. That was my impression, and but as the years have gone on, and possibly as I became aware of how competent he was and how he kept us alive and safe by effective night defensive perimeters, and there was, I heard, intelligence from the enemy. They said, don't mess with Delta Company because they got their stuff together for their night defensive perimeter. So that's good. And he was always positive and respectful to me, but my first impression was like, oh my God, what the heck have I got myself into?
I see, he might have reminded you of sort of the stereotypical person you thought might want to go to Vietnam?
You know what it reminded me of was, I graduated from high school in 1964 in Mississippi, which, if you recollect, is when the civil rights workers were murdered.
Right.
So I grew up in a college town. My parents were college educated. And basically rednecks that drove pickup trucks and had gun racks in the back and were racist and possibly members of the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, it was a somewhat dangerous environment. It was a dangerous, especially if you're black, it was dangerous in Mississippi. So I had this mindset about quote, southern rednecks, unquote. So I put him in that bin, I think, probably at first. But like I said, he treated me respectfully, and I tried to do a good job, and so I'm really glad.
Okay. All right. Now,
I was with him.
in those, like the first few months of you kind of get sort of March, April, May, June in 1970, before Ripcord really heated up. You're spending a lot of time patrolling around in the jungle. What kind of things did you have to do as a medic? What kind of business did they drum up for you?
Not a hell of a lot. In terms of injuries, the most thing I had to do was I was sent with a squad, 10 people, I don't know how many, to pick up the bodies of guys who died in a medevac crash. Well, there was a recon team who got hit, and I believe, I didn't have to read the book, but that they called in a medevac. The medevac was shot down, and we had to carry the bodies of the pilot, and I don't know if there was anybody else, but so I had to, so we carried body bags, and so we strapped the body bags to, we cut poles, and we carried the bodies back to where the command post, the company command post was. So that was one.
Did people get infections or jungle rot or things like that you had to treat, or?
One of the guys got a venereal disease on R&R and was complaining of symptoms. And unfortunately for him, I had a big old dose of penicillin and gave him that. I gave out malaria pills daily, and I don't remember treating jungle rot, but I do remember having these antifungal medications, so I may have done a bit of that. Um, frankly, most of my most of my medic activity was involved carrying dead people.
All right. The malaria medication, was that Adabrin or something else?
I don't know. It's a clear, viscous liquid in a little tube.
Okay. Because I guess in World War II they had Adabrin, which would turn people yellow, and that was in pills at that
No,
time.
that
They have improved it since then.
No,
Okay.
I don't think it was that. It was, I don't know what
Okay,
it was.
but it was the anti-malaria.
Michael something maybe, I don't know.
All right. Now, did you have much of a feel at all for what was going on around you in terms of just?
I had no clue. You know, I listened to the guys here at the reunion talk, and you know, they, especially the squad leaders, you know, and they had maps, and they knew where they were, and they knew what the name of the river was, and they knew, you know, and where Hill 1000 was in relation to Ripcord, and you know, I had no clue whatsoever. I had no clue whatsoever about anything, and I don't know if I forgot it or denied it or was never given the information. I didn't put myself into I never was good at collecting gossip when I was a kid, so I carried that on. All I knew was get up, walk here, dig this hole.
Did you worry much about not coming back or getting hit or anything like that, or was it just more of a, this is just something I'm going to go through and I'm going to go home?
Pretty much it. I don't remember feeling. I don't remember being in constant dread. I mean, you know, when we were sent to extract Alpha Company, and we were told we were going to go into extract Alpha Company, and their night defensive position had been hit, and there were dead people, and we had to fly in, and so they camped us near the tarmac so we could get a first light, and I was pretty scared then. I was scared when we went up Hill 1000, but for the most part, I just paid attention to what the next thing was to do.
All right. Now, did you ever spend time up on Ripcord itself?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I did.
And what were you doing there? What do you recall about that?
I remember sleeping in a bunker, and it would be a bunker built into the side of the mountain. So the mountain is here, you know, I mean the hill's here, and there's maybe a little outcropping, and with sandbags, and I don't know if it was wood or what was the superstructure of the bunker, and staying there. Using the outhouses that were built on the side of the hill, which were covered around with sandbags, and I remember eating rice and fish with the Arvin artillery battery and Captain Rollison. I remember getting hit by mortar fire, and one of our company got a sucking chest wound, and I applied a petroleum gauze to that, to my recollection, and then he went up to the we took him up to the medic headquarters in Ripcord, and they took him from there.
Now, was the battalion's doctor on the base at that point? Are you aware of him being there or not? Okay, because he actually spent some time out on Ripcord, which wasn't that common.
I had no clue. I don't remember how long we were there, but based on what I've been told and understand, it was kind of in between forays out.
Right.
And so it seems maybe longer than it was, but we were there.
May have been a few weeks. sort of they rotated the companies. One company would be on Ripcord, and the others would be patrolling in the jungle around it. And so you would have had a turn in there.
A few weeks, but maybe one or two, I suppose.
Okay. All right. Now, before the 1st of July, do you recall if the company got into any firefights or things like that, or was stuff still quiet?
I don't have any, I didn't connect, I can't connect, any dates
Okay.
or chronology is difficult.
Well,
We did have it there, we did have some action, and I believe, my guess, it was sometime possibly May.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably in the Ripcord book, but we were, Delta was moving up a hill, and we had stopped to rest, and we were sitting there quiet in our spaced out
Mm-hmm.
configuration, and I looked up, and there was a North Vietnamese soldier, shorts, Ho Chi Minh sandals, AK-47, young kid, walking toward us, and Lieutenant McCall shot him. Back last time I went to the Ripcord reunion, Lieutenant McCall, or I don't know what he left the Army as, but Jim McCall told me that guy was about to shoot me.
Mm-hmm.
So, because he said he was looking at me and he was raising his weapon.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't remember that. I remembered that he was there, and I remembered getting some of his flesh on my rucksack.
So he was not very far away from you.
Not far, no.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now, the Ripcord campaign heats up about July 1st. That's when the bombardment of the fire base kind of starts, where they start firing more and more mortars at it. And there's about a week or so of that before your company is sent to attack Hill 1000. And that's kind of one of the major moments in the campaign. Now, do you recall much about that? Because you talked about being kind of worried about going up it.
I remember, we were told we're going up this hill, and my recollection is there was a line of people, a big line of people in the company,
Mm-hmm.
and we were like, standing in line, waiting to go up the hill, right?
So you're just like one at a time following each other, and
Yeah.
not spread out, and all going up.
No, it was, to my recollection, it was a single line up.
Mhm.
But the line wasn't moved. Well, the line moved a little bit, I guess, but
Mhm.
I don't. And frankly, I stepped aside and let the line move past me
Mhm.
because I didn't want to go. So, but I remember that. I do remember, I believe it was Hill 1000, treating somebody who had been hit in the buttock with a shrapnel.
Mhm.
And I attempted to give him, he probably didn't need it, I don't know. I attempted to give him an IV,
Mhm.
but his veins had gone in, and I couldn't do it. He probably didn't need one anyway. I don't know why I decided to do that, but he had a messed up butt, and I must have bandaged that and attempted to treat him in some way before he, and I think there was 2 assaults on 1000, and
Yeah. Well, you attacked. I think July 7th, your company attacked and was stopped. And July 8th, C Company was sent in to go up one side while you went up the other. And one of the sort of mysteries is exactly what happened, because C Company went up their side and D Company didn't get up theirs. Although I think Jim McCall actually tried.
I was told that Jim actually got up to their barricade or embankment or whatever and threw over some grenades or charges or some kind. But the day before, I guess it must have been. I do remember that there was a CO medic had would just come into the company. Blonde-haired guy with wire rimmed glasses, the John Lennon glasses, and he's a CO, and he went with them, and they brought him back dead.
Yeah, he went with C Company. Yeah, and so that would have been July. That was July 8th, because they had a new conscientious objector, one who fits that description, who got killed. So yes, they had to bring him back around to the position.
So I just, that just pissed the hell out of me. So I walked up to Colonel Lucas and I said, "What's a quota for today, sir?" Meaning, what's the quota of dead people we have to accomplish today?
Now, one of the things that went on in conjunction with Hill 1000, it actually would have been that day, because the commander of C Company, Jeff Wilcox, basically blew up at Lucas and for trying to get his men killed, because Lucas had given him an order to go back again in the afternoon.
Sorry, Wilcox did what?
Well, Lucas was commander of C Company,
Right.
and
Wilcox.
Yeah, and then he led them out. He lost the medic. They brought him back, and it's somewhere in the afternoon, and Colonel Lucas comes in his helicopter, and according to Wilcox and Jim Campbell, for that matter, basically the first thing out of his mouth was, "How soon can you go back up?" And without asking anything else or looking at the men or anything, just asking that, and at that point Wilcox kind of lost it. And so he said things to him, kind of like what you said. Now, but you didn't see any of that.
No, I didn't. All I saw, I think Rollison was there.
Yeah.
I saw Rollison there, and I saw him there, and I just, I got infuriated, and I just, said it. So.
And what happened after you said that?
Nothing that I remember.
Okay.
I do remember that Rollison mentioned it probably after I was in the rear, and sort of chuckled about it.
All right. Yeah. So, now, do you remember? Did you have other casualties at Hill 1000? You mentioned the one guy who got hurt that you treated. I think there were a couple of men who were killed up there.
Well, we lost Lewis Howard.
I think he was one they had to leave his body up there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We lost him. I don't know. I don't remember. He's the one who sticks in my mind because I knew him the best, and he was a guy I had interacted with and had talked with and liked.
Okay. Now, after that episode, you pulled off of Hill 1000. Do you remember, did you go back to a base or just somewhere else in the jungle, or?
I don't know.
Okay. Because there's another, couple weeks, basically, until the end of the campaign on the 22nd and 23rd of July. 22nd, your company is sent out to help extract D Company of 1506. And then the next day you go out.
We did?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
But the next day was going out for Alpha Company.
I don't know if they divided up, but I don't remember doing a next.
You didn't do two of them, you remember one of them.
I do. We did two?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
What do you remember about going out to Alpha Company? You tell me a little bit about that already, that you were there the night before, getting ready so you could go out at first light to help them. Okay, and then once you took off, now what happens?
We had, to my recollection, an uneventful. We got off the helicopter without incident,
Mm-hmm.
and then we just started walking. I don't know how long it was. We were walking a trail on top of a ridge, to my recollection, for part of the time, at any rate. And that there may have been some fire going on. I don't know. I have this memory of concern about a mortar attack along, and I don't have a lot of recollection, but I believe there was probably explosions and random shots going on, but nothing in your face that I recollect.
Yeah, the worst stuff had already happened there, and once you made contact, the enemy mostly wasn't directly attacking. But then you got in there, you got to their position, and now what do you find?
Yeah, well, we find a bunch of dead guys, and so I was, I started cutting limbs to create poncho litters. So it's one thing I learned in AIT, is how to make a poncho litter. So you cut a stick and you wrap one end of the poncho and then the other end, and then you've got a litter. So we made poncho litters, and then we loaded the dead onto
How many helicopters? Or
I don't remember how many helicopters I just remember loading dead and weapons and their weapons onto the helicopters. I think I helped collect weapons. I think while I was doing that, and while there was other activity going on, I think they were also cutting an LZ. They had to cut an LZ. So, and I could hear rifle fire, and it sounded to me like AK. And also, you can tell by the sound whether it's coming at you or going away from you. But I think it was coming toward us, but it was like this kind of like way off random kind of stuff. It didn't feel like we were under attack in any way.
No. There were also quite a few wounded from the company. Now, did other medics from your company or did their guys just take care of them? Because they still had a couple of medics, I think.
I don't remember. All I know is I loaded up the dead. I don't remember treating anybody.
Okay. All right. So then you get out of there that day. Do they helicopters
Yes.
take you off? Yeah.
I guess, right. We didn't spend the night.
Yeah. All right. Now then, once that's over, do you get a stand down or anything like that for a while before you go back out? Because some of them talk about going to Eagle Beach.
You know, we went to Eagle Beach, but I think it was earlier on. I don't remember. I remember going to Eagle Beach.
Yeah. Well, there was a big stand down, I think, at the end of June or something like that.
That's the one I remember. I don't remember. And there may have been a stand down possibly, but I don't remember going to Eagle Beach. It may have been on. We had a couple on Evans, and we would have to get haircuts, and they would give us new fatigues, and we'd get some hot food, and go drink the crappy near beer and the.
Now, did you go back out in the field after this, or
You
did
know,
get reassigned?
it gets hazy. I don't. I believe that's when I was pretty much after that was when I was pulled out.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
because I wasn't, I had, in fact, I don't even remember knowing that Ripcord fell.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't remember any field activity after the Alpha Company extraction.
Because if you got there in January or whatever, then that would have been 6 full months or maybe a little more than that in the field.
Right.
So what assignment did you get then after that?
Then I was assigned under Jim McCall to work with S5. And S5 was my primary function was to go out on what they call medcaps, which are medical service to villages.
Okay.
And I was given the responsibility of recording the statistics from medcaps. And so we would go out. I don't remember how we got there. I think it seemed like it's mostly truck. I don't remember. With a ARVN interpreter and a certain number of people, and we'd set up. I don't remember any hostilities associated with that at all.
You had people, and then civilians come to you for treatment? Was
Right.
that okay?
I asked one of the guys, I was talking with Mark Skinner, and he said he was there, he was in the S5 with me. I said, oh, well, that was, I don't remember that. So Mark, I said, well, did they send it? I said, did a doctor go out with us? He said, no, it was you. I remember people coming in, and I remember doing stuff in general. And I remember a lot of kids being around, but I think actually it reminded me, because when I was in college, I did a medical mission to Honduras, and lived up in a little village in Honduras for 6 weeks, and people gave shots and stuff. So it really was very reminiscent of that. So I kind of felt at home.
Yeah. What impression did you have of the Vietnamese themselves?
I thought the ARVN interpreters and the Kit Carson scouts. Well, the ARVN interpreters I recollected as being educated, friendly, personable, fun. The Chuhois, a little more rough-hewn, and kind of like, God, I just want to keep living. Don't let me get in too much crap.
Yeah.
And the people, the kids were friendly, and were always looking for a handout, or so we tried to give them stuff. I guess I don't remember, candy and stuff.
Yeah.
And the villagers that came were, pretty older, rough life, smoking these horrible, stinky, God, the tobacco they smoke just smelled like burning garbage. So, but I don't recollect interactions with the adults, but I think they were probably, I don't remember.
Okay. Do you have a sense of what kinds of problems they'd have or things they wanted you to fix, or?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Couldn't have been much.
Yeah. Well,
that I could have done anyway.
Sure. But sometimes, and some medics talk about, people come to you and they assume you can cure anything, and then that sort of stuff. But all right. Now you're also living on Camp Evans at this point. Okay. Now, what was base life like? What do you remember about that?
Very relaxed. I avoided contact with officers. We had a top sergeant at, I guess he was, I don't know if he was for the battalion or if he was headquarters company. I think one or two times he attempted to get us into a formation in the morning where you report, and we were like, what the hell are you doing? I was told later that after that happened a couple of times, he was threatened pretty severely by somebody. I smoked a lot of marijuana, hung out with there was this whole like underculture of people who used, and we used to have a place we called the Hole, which was like, nobody's gonna know we're here, right? And we'd go gather there, and and it's all friendly, and the black guys and us, and and whoever, and we'd share dope and laugh and joke and stuff, and I recollect that there was people, there was a bunch of people that were addicted to heroin and were nodding out on guard duty, and in fact there was a whole hooch, of people that didn't seem to be doing anything, which other than using drugs and making a big mess, and so.
Did anything get done about them, or were they just left to their devices?
As far as I could tell, it was like they're. So we were standing down one time, and so we're in this big line up to the mess tent, up to the mess building, and some of these guys who were in this drug hooch, they kind of like just walked up the line, and like they were kind of like in a buffet, and they would go up and they would just pick up what they wanted, and this guy that was standing, he's like, can you see what they're doing, It's like, hey, we get to watch the whole thing, I said, So we just watched these, and it was like, so as far as I could tell, the leadership didn't do squat about it. So.
Now, you mentioned that at least when they were smoked pot together, white soldiers, black soldiers, and so forth all got along. Did you see signs of racial tensions in other contexts?
Well, the drug hooch was pretty much all black as far as I could tell. So, yeah, and then there was a black guy who I believe got sent to whatever the prison, LBJ.
Long Bin Jail.
LBJ,
Yeah.
Long Bin Jail for attempting to frag somebody, an officer, I believe, or an NCO or something, I don't know. Other than that, my direct observation of racial was that we got along.
Yeah.
That's my perception of it. Yeah.
Well, there are standard stereotypes about Vietnam. There's race, and there's drugs, and there's ragging, and there's those kinds of things. So, I'll ask, well, what did you see or not see, so it's just helpful, and that's really kind of what we're interested in. I'm not trying to prove a point one way or another, but just what did you observe in your case? Okay. Now, while you were there, were you communicating much with people back home, or did you just keep to yourself, or?
I think I did a phone call. I don't remember. I didn't write much. I just stayed busy. I did photography in dark room, and I made big belts, and smoked dope, and played music. I played guitar. I wrote a song about Captain Rawlinson. I read books, and I started meditating.
Mm-hmm.
They had books about meditation. They had these books you could get.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the ones about meditation. So I'd go out on a sandbag out in the bushes on Evans and started doing what it said in the books
Mm-hmm.
and started meditating.
All right. Now this tape is just about up, so we're gonna stop here. All right, we're kind of getting to the point of closing out your tour of Vietnam, and I guess if you think back to the year in Vietnam you spent, are there other impressions or things that kind of stay with you that you haven't brought into the story yet?
Yeah, there was an award ceremony on Camp Evans, and Captain Rollison was giving medals and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got a Bronze Star for my work for the Alpha Company
Mm-hmm.
extraction,
Mm-hmm.
which seemed kind of, I thought he was kind of, I don't know why he did that, because I didn't do anything extraordinary other than,
You kept your cool and you did your job.
so, so he pinned it on me and he said, I don't know, he said, maybe this will get you a cup of coffee sometime.
Mm-hmm.
You know, meaning,
Yeah.
So he was kind of downplaying it, but I felt, since I respected Captain Rollison at that point, I felt honored
Mm-hmm.
that just from him,
Mm-hmm.
just that he appreciated.
Yeah. Good. All right. Now, were you counting the days till you got to go home, or did you just ignore
Yes,
it?
I had my FTA calendar with the number of days, and we'd scratch it off. F the Army, that's what
Yes.
FTA stands
Mhm.
for. And, well, it seemed a little foolish at this point because Lord knows what could have happened, but I wanted to get out of the freaking Army, so I added another 3 months to my Evans tour. Plus, I was having fun,
After a fashion.
after a fashion. So what it was. But I really could not imagine going to some stateside assignment. It
Mhm.
I just wanted to get out, and so the rule was if you had X number of months left, 6 was it? I don't know. When you left Vietnam, you would derose, I guess. Is that what the word is?
Yeah. Well, if you had less than 6 months left, you could get an early out.
You'd get an early out. So I got an early out. So I just made more belts and took more pictures.
Mm-hmm. So when did you get back to the States then?
That would have been March of '71.
Yeah. Okay. And do you remember the flight out, leaving Vietnam?
Yeah. I got pretty good, evidently got pretty good at what they say in the psychological lingo is dissociation.
Okay.
So that's probably how I got by. So I'm there in, I guess it's Cameron,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sitting in the terminal waiting for the plane. And I'm reading a book by this Indian spiritual philosopher whose name escapes me right now. And I was so engrossed in the book, I missed my flight.
Wow.
So I got, hung out another day or two waiting for the next plane, ran into a guy who was hiding out in a bunker because he was addicted to heroin. And I think I gave him some marijuana. Oh, I had some opium too. So I gave him something, I think, to try to help him, but anyway. So finally I got out and flew to Fort Lewis.
And when you get there, what sort of process awaits you?
They give you a steak dinner. Which I was like, oh yeah, oh man, a steak dinner, oh goody. I was an angry young man. As it turns out, I'm still an angry guy. And, push and prod you. I had this thing, I had this dental condition, and with discolored teeth and stuff. And I remember I was in the dental chair, and the guy says, "Hey, come look at this." So a bunch of dentists were like hovering around me looking at my teeth, They asked permission, but I didn't have sense enough to tell them to go screw themselves. I was told, the doctor said, "You got hearing loss. It looks like it happened in Vietnam." He said I'd get that documented, which I, of course, ignored. But shouldn't it be in my record? I don't know. Well, I would have to do something about it, but...
What would have caused it? Were you around something that exploded?
Oh, well, let's see. I think the 175 millimeter cannons were nasty. The 155s, the 110s, the mortars,
Okay.
the machine guns, the laws, and the M16s. Other than that, I don't know what could have caused my hearing loss.
Not one big blast, but just a lot of loud noise.
No, I didn't have any of those satchel charge injuries or anything like that.
Yeah.
No, I was lucky enough not to have that.
Okay, so they check you. They're checking you. Did the dentist try to make you stay so they could fix your teeth, or did they let you out?
No, I didn't. No, it wasn't fixable. No, they didn't. No, they just passed me through, and then I don't remember. I don't remember how I got home, but I believe. See, at that point, what I did was. One possible scenario is I went home, but I think what I did is I went to L.A. How I got to L.A. I don't remember. I may have flown because I had a buddy from Evans who was in L.A. and we hung out together for a while. And from there, I hitchhiked to San Francisco, and I don't remember, but I hitchhiked across the United States a couple of times.
Okay.
I went to Mississippi. I went home. Finally, went home to Mississippi. I hitchhiked home. I remember because my parents weren't there, and I had to call somebody. And I stayed there for a while, and then I hitchhiked back. It was sort of like I couldn't get enough of having a pack on my back and sleeping on the ground. But I hitchhiked back across the United States, and I went to the Zen Center in San Francisco. And when I got there, they were in the middle of a 5-day meditation, so I got them to take me in, and I sat, and then I found an apartment in San Francisco with some guys, and then I meditated there daily, and then I went to a 7-day meditation session and had this deep spiritual experience and spent the rest of my summer there, and then I went back to Chicago to finish up my master's degree.
Okay. Now, how did you support yourself during this period? What did you do for money? Did you have some saved up military pay or something like that?
I don't remember. I do not know. I think I got $175 a month from the VA or some kind of veterans thing for school.
Mm-hmm.
But my parents were, they supported me, I'm sure. But traveling back and forth and living in, I don't have any idea. I must have had some money. I don't remember my parents giving it to me, so I don't remember having a bank account. So I don't know. But
somehow you did all of it.
I somehow did all that, yeah.
Okay. Then did you finish the degree at Chicago?
I did, yeah.
Okay. And what did you do after that?
Then I went to work for a children's behavioral health organization in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Actually, I went there because there was a Korean Zen master
Mm-hmm.
who lived nearby who had a center,
Mm-hmm.
and I lived there, meditated daily, and then I'd go to work and then come back and participate in the life of the Zen Center. And so I stayed at Kids Peace was the name of the organization, or it was Wiley House then. And I got a job there, and I, as a social worker for a residential treatment center for kids with emotional problems, which is kind of what I'd wanted to do. And stayed there 36 and a half years.
And you still live out in Pennsylvania, so.
I do.
Okay. Now, to look back at your time in the Army, how do you think that affected you positively, negatively, or what did you take out of it?
Well, it kicked off my spiritual quest. It led to a spiritual awakening of sorts. At least I became aware of the fact that there could be a spiritual awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And I experienced the taste of it. And so I continue to meditate daily and engaged in my quest to know God directly. So, I'm sorry, what was the question?
Well, just how do you think that being in the military affected you? So there's certainly
Well,
that's one piece, certainly.
The reason I'm here at this reunion is because I've just been getting really pissed off lately. This political environment, I just get livid because of this stupidity of the quality of the leadership that exists.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to a psychologist, and he said, you might want to look at Vietnam. I think I didn't have kids. I overused drugs and alcohol for the first 10 or 15 years after my leaving Vietnam. I didn't have classic PTSD. I slept okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a bit of a workaholic. I had some addictions, and I got along okay at work,
Mm-hmm.
I think I had some depression from time to time. But I got off pretty easy from, no night terrors and
Mm-hmm.
all that good stuff. But
And not the reflex stuff of hear a loud noise, hide under a car kind of thing.
yeah, a little bit of that. I hate the 4th of July.
So you brought back a certain amount of baggage. Is this your first trip to Ripcord reunion?
No, I came in 2013.
Okay.
And so 4 years ago,
No, 3 years ago.
3 years ago. And it was good. It was kind of amazing, it was appreciated being recognized by
Mhm.
some people and welcomed.
Yeah.
And but I've gone to this time. I've gone to kind of a new level in just terms of the amount of talking I'm doing with people and the kind of connections I'm making. So it's a good thing.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to share the story today.
Thanks for listening.